everyone, welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters. With your questers, Josh and Dan, I am Dan.
I am Josh.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things combatical and political, because we're going to talk about the adventure tournament troubles, written for some journeyman adepts. So if you have any questions for us, please drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. Initial thoughts, Josh, or anything we might need to catch people up on?
Nothing that we need to catch people up on. The only thing that I guess I'll mention is that I actually am trying to be active on Bluesky, because that has sort of exploded in last 2-3 weeks as the massive Twitter exodus has been happening and people moving over to Bluesky.
Exodus.
I started at the beginning of this week as we're recording this. Mm-hmm. So this is the week before Thanksgiving. And have some stuff, and I'm going to try and be a little bit more active on it. So if that is something that you're interested in, I've been on Bluesky for a while. I got an invite at some point, but hadn't really been active. But now with lots and lots of people, I'm going to be trying to do that more. So if that is your sort of thing, I'm on there as Lore Merchant. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Look me up. I have a thread actually talking about the Metal Fist.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Metal Fist tribe in Earthdawn, the episode that went live today as we are recording this.
Yeah.
Talking about cool stuff.
I think I gave you an invite to Bluesky because I was one of the original.
That may very well be. I don't remember at this point.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
I am liking it. It is feeling in some ways like Twitter originally did back in ye olden days.
Yeah.
Just in terms of interactions and the community and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a raging garbage fire of hate and nonsense. I bailed on Twitter. I think I mentioned it on the show. I bailed on Twitter like a year and a half ago or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I didn't actually delete my account. I just said, I am not going to be here anymore, and logged out and deleted it off my phone.
I was on Twitter just to sell audiobooks, and it never seemed to work, so I gave up. That was it. And so I did hashtags for everything, and the algorithm never fed my stuff to anybody else. So I never got
The thing about Bluesky is that Bluesky is, at least currently, not heavily algorithm driven.
Yes.
The downside of that, of course, then is that it's not likely that people are going to randomly stumble across you, that you need to like actually engage with people.
Yeah.
There's a tool that's available that a lot of people are doing called starter packs, where it's basically like, hey, here is a bunch of really cool people that you should follow. And you like click on the link and you just then click another button and it immediately sets you to following all of the people that are on that list. And so you'll have there's a starter pack of like indie TTRPG designers.
Nice.
And niches for whatever various kind of things you have. And then you have people and you see who they're interacting with and you kind of build from there. And I think like any positive use of social media, one's experience with it will depend especially on not engaging. The community feeling is right now of, because it's not algorithm driven. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is some algorithm to it in some regards. Just liking a post is not enough to do anything for it. You really need to like retweet it, because it is kind of built on the Fediverse model, aka similar to like Mastodon. So there's some stuff that's kind of built into it that just changes the way that it goes. But it's interesting. I am enjoying it so far. We'll see how well I keep up with it, but I'm already finding it a lot more engaging than I had felt about any kind of social media platform in a while. It's even like had me going, I have some other things that I want to write, like even more long form stuff about. Maybe I'll actually dust off the blog on the website and talk about some stuff, because I've got thoughts that I was talking with Dan before we started recording about. I actually started running a Monster of the Week game for my girlfriend and my kids, and having a great time with that, and was kind of realizing as I was thinking about it over the past few days that I really like the low prep requirement. Earthdawn is fantastic. I love the Earthdawn setting. The crunch level is to the point now where I really don't want to engage with it to that degree. Certainly not the way that I did 15, 20 years ago. It's just a lot of work on my part to prep things. Fair. And that is in some regards, a more traditional game. And I'm musing about ways to incorporate some of the lessons in much the same way that I incorporated some things from game design when I was working on the early concepts for 4th edition, things to incorporate into their ways to change things, to kind of take advantage of some things that were in the development space and things that I had learned looking at other games and whatnot, and starting to muse on how to effectively maybe bring some of those more recent lessons that I've had into, from the more indie / narrative kind of space into a more traditional RPG like Earthdawn. Thoughts that are bouncing around in my squirrely little brain, whether anything actually comes of them or not is to be determined. But anyway, the other thing that I want to say, completely unrelated to all of that, tournament troubles. We did an episode on Travar, right? Yeah, we didn't do a significantly deep dive, but this adventure obviously was written and released before the Travar book was.
We did an episode on Travar, kind of skimming the surface when the Travar handbook came out, but we didn't actually do a deep dive.
Yeah, I do remember that actually. But the Travar sourcebook might be helpful in fleshing out additional information about this adventure. I think everything that you need to run it obviously is in here. But yeah, that would be another place to go to for additional information.
How could you miss me waxing rhapsodic about the map of Travar? Remember that? So if you have the Travar book, by all means use it, because it will actually help you flesh out more about your tournament troubles. And so if you want to take this adventure and broaden it, expand it, make it run a little bit longer, by all means do so. This is a fantastic place to start with a pretty quick campaign if you want to make it that way, just as it's written, or if you want to expand upon it and really make it last longer, you by all means absolutely can, using the Travar sourcebook, because it will absolutely complement your preparation in that regard. So we are going to talk about the Shards Volume 1. This is written for 3 to 5 journeyman adepts, so circles 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we're talking some serious level here. To Josh's point, this is some prep. You don't just open this book thinking you're going to start right in on it. You are going to want to make some prep for this and figure some things out. There are some prerequisites. So that is running the founding. You're going to have to customize those combat games, those riddle games, and so forth and so on for your players to make sure that they're kind of up their alley instead of just random. But that's what the game master is going to do in the first place. Secondarily, you want to make sure that somebody in the party has a legendary status of at least 1, or at least 1 character has that. Maybe 2 characters, fine. Or if you've been hanging around Travar, that this character has, or characters have, a reputation that precedes them in Travar. They've made some friends, they've made some enemies, who knows? But they're known. That's going to be part of the adventure going on.
One of the things about the tournament in general, to kind of summarize that real quickly for those who are not aware, one of the more unique aspects of political life in Travar is that the city is ostensibly ruled by a council of magistrates.
Yeah.
And I think there are 5 seats. Okay.
It's the body of 5.
It's a body of 5. Right. I remember that now.
That's fair. Because everything about Travar is 5.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'm remembering now. I haven't looked at that book in a while. But there is a tournament held every year to elect, essentially, although elect is absolutely not the right word for it, to determine who will be seated on that council.
Yes.
And so it is a tournament that is held in the grand arena in the city center, where those candidates who are vying for a seat on the council sponsor teams of adepts to compete on their behalf.
Yeah. It's kind of like the owner of the Super Bowl winning team gets to run things.
Yeah.
So the Super Bowl happens. There's more than two teams, but we're going to go with this really bad analogy I'm making up on the fly. So it's like the Super Bowl teams go, but only the teams play, great, they win, great. It's the owner of the team, whoever sponsored the team, gets to be the magistrate on that seat for the next year.
And I think they rotate through like which seats are open or something to that effect.
Something like that. Yeah. We'll get there.
Hollywood gladiator idea of things. The games are not supposed to be lethal.
Yes.
There's a civic organization that is dedicated to developing and inventing the challenges for each year. And it's fantastic kind of thing like that. And the other added benefit is that the adepts who compete in the tournament are well regarded and given a title. The title, of course, then obligates them to come to the aid of Travar if they are ever called upon, yes. Which is why Travar is able to not have a standing army, effectively. They've basically got this massive pool of experienced adepts to draw from if there's ever any kind of issue. And this is another way, of course, that player character groups can be sort of brought into adventures involving the city because, oh, there's a problem. Well, hey, why don't you guys go and handle it? But obviously, because of this and because of the ultimate prize involved, that being a seat on the council, the magistrates will spend lots of money. And so the competition is very fierce. And so rookies, novice adepts and whatnot are generally not sought for these positions. They're looking for more experienced folks. And so it is journeyman adepts, just population-wise, that are most commonly going to be involved in these sorts of things. The Travar book also has some examples of actual tests and challenges that you could adapt if you did want to include those in here.
Exactly. So, as we said, since this is for all the marbles and you're really there to perform well in this and they want the best of the best, this is why this adventure is written for circles 5 through 8. You should have some oomph behind everything that you can do. You should have some higher steps behind everything you can do as well. And you should know how to handle yourselves politically, because half of this adventure is the politics involved.
Right. There is a lot of skullduggery and
malfeasance,
yeah, and
backstabbing,
espionage sorts of things that are going on. The challenges for that year's founding are kept very, very secret, but there is a lot of work and effort that is done to try and find out what they might be to perhaps gain an edge in the competition. Yeah, like rivals.
So let's get there.
Sabotaging each other's teams to ruin their chances of success and stuff like that.
Of course. So let's back up a little bit and give an overview of how this adventure is going to work. So you are going for the challenges in the founding, and you're either in Travar or you get to Travar. Take your pick. Hopefully your reputation precedes you, your legendary status works for you, and the founding is basically 2 weeks of magic, wild beasts, puzzles, traps, and festivities. It's like Mardi Gras mixed with the Super Bowl and gladiatorial combat and all manner of things. It's a big to-do. Okay, it's their 2 weeks of the year that they do this stuff. So
it is the event of the year in Travar.
Oh yeah, nothing else compares to this. They spend months leading up to this whole thing, planning the games, planning the festivities, making the costumes and the decorations and the whole 9 yards and the theme, and if there's going to be a theme. So there's a wealthy elven merchant named Galmir who wants to hire you to be his champions. This is the lead-in, okay? Take the hook. There are rival competitors who may be trying to cheat by spying on the game's plans by the council who makes them up. And so you need to gather info about either the rivals or the plans. Take your pick, maybe both. Part of that is among the rivals champions, they have one member who saw an assassination of his boss, and that person who witnessed that asks you for help to protect him from also getting killed. So politics has already started. You're about a day or two into the whole, do I accept the offer or not? And there you are, okay? Now you've got a conflict of interest. And then you have to do the founding in the series of contests. So all of this lead up is to maneuver around the city, not upset certain factions, and maybe make good on your agreement if you agree, because Galmir asks for a blood oath. So it's a standing contract. So have your blood oath rules ready as the game master, and refusing to take his contract also puts you in the path of perhaps he doesn't like being said no to. And so maybe he will get the assassin on y'all. This is again for the game master. So if you say no to him, perhaps you have to deal with the assassin. And that's going to be a running Pink Panther gag throughout the entire thing if you say no, because then why are you in the city not doing the challenges? Maybe you go be somebody else's champions. But if you be his champion, then you agree to it. And then you have to do your homework on Galmir, maybe, before you say yes. Maybe your streetwise rolls or your investigation rolls for all of your skills to see what you're going to do. And, if you take him up on it, yeah, fine. You get the rewards and you only have to do this thing once. There's that. But a lot of ROLE playing will be involved in your interaction tests with Galmir. And it's a risky proposition, but then again, you're adventurers. This is what you do. You do risky things. This is riskier politically than it is going to be mortally risky, but that's one of those things. And so Galmir is in business with Cole and Brelnar. They are merchants. Well, one of them's a merchant because Brelnar has recently been made not alive anymore, and Cole has been missing since Brelnar has been made not alive. So Cole is missing, and he knows that Brelnar was assassinated because there were connections politically that are very dangerous to uncover. And so now Cole is coming to you to ask you for protection and getting him out of the city. So again, already starting off with the complexities, already starting off with the politics, already starting off with the ROLE playing as to how you maneuver around all of these situations. So it's a different kind of adventure. Initial thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, it's not super convoluted. When things get explained, they all sort of make sense, but there is still an espionage kind of level, a cloak and dagger double crossing. There is action and intrigue and things like that is taking place throughout this whole story, but the focus is not on the tournament itself, but more on the machinations of individuals around it that are trying to obtain a seat of power that will advantage them tremendously. People's fortunes are made or lost on the outcome of the tournament. Someone who gains a seat on the council can do a lot to take advantage of that position to advance their own business interests and to make a lot of money. It's very like oligarch kind of position where once they're on that seat, they have access to the city's coffers in a way that would not otherwise be made available to them. Take inspirations from things like the Jason Bourne stories, James Bond a little bit less, but any of those espionage, heist movies where you're not always necessarily sure what's going on and not necessarily sure exactly who to trust. Can be a certain amount of that involved in the proceedings.
Robert De Niro's Ronin is a good example.
Yeah, I was going to say like Ronin, a little bit of like Ocean's 11 in there because there is a heist stage to this adventure. Looking at greatly underrated film The Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis.
Oh, a fantastic movie.
And Samuel L. Jackson. If you have not seen that movie, it is highly recommended.
It's been a while. I need to see that one again.
Any kind of movies in that sort of genre, there aren't really like traditional fantasy movies in that, but that's the kind of feel that you're going for with this, with some double crossing and heist. The Italian Job, perhaps another one. Any kind of situation where you've got a large group of competing interests, perhaps all going after the same kind of prize.
Mm-hmm.
Eraser, I think, maybe. Like, that's got kind of a MacGuffin-y thing that different people are going for.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of those, especially 90s era espionage / heist movies, late 90s, early 2000s, all kind of, I think, would provide appropriate inspiration for this adventure in terms of what's going on plot-wise.
Well, because really, the first half of this is all going to be discussion, negotiation, and role-playing as far as the talk in character, use your skills, figure out your background, by 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th circle, you should know who your character is by now. You should know their positions on things. You should know what they are willing and not willing to do for the sake of legend, for the sake of helping people out, and so forth. And so if you take the contract, Galmir points you to his procurement person. And this is the guy named Beltalk, who's full of information. Literally, he's got page 68 is nothing but answers to questions your characters might have. So he is the rumor mill. He is rumor control. He will tell you everything you want to know. So this is the take this bait, take the contract, go talk to Beltalk. He'll get you the things that you want for the tournament. If it's scrolls or parchments or bits of knowledge about the city, if it's how to solve puzzles, if it's armor or equipment or weapons and things like that, he'll get those for you. And this is a lot of interaction tests because he's going to be already at a negative attitude towards you when you get there. And so you're starting off on the wrong foot. But he likes being a little bit tipsy. Just going to say that right there. And you don't pay him. You barter with him. This is the merchant city. So everything to do with Beltalk is bartering. So more interaction tests. No combat yet, unless you really, really want to. Because if you said no, then the assassin's after you. Then you do your combat thing. And how you're going to get him back to take the job from Galmir, I have no idea. Anyway, so at that point, Beltalk is going to tell you that there's a rival faction who's going to try and steal the plans because they're planning on cheating to win the tournament. And that's the thing. So do you also try and get the plans from the body of 5, break in somehow and get them? That's a whole set of other tests. It's the sneaking and the...
It's your heist.
It's your heist. That's the heist part right there. And so Brelnar's champions have the gamesman's plans in mind to sneak. Cole suggests you get the plans to prevent them from cheating and winning. This is all political, by the way. So you have to figure out what your characters will and won't do. If you say yes, then you get to break into the villa of Oman Odestris. And there's your thievery, your stealth, your diversions, your planning a heist, your guards, your pets, the whole 9 yards, and traps, and so forth and so on. If you say no, great, you skip all of this. But it's all fun if you do this. But this is the only way into the Body of the 5 guild house because there's a magical portal into the guild house. The guild house has no windows, no doors. The only way in is through the villa of Oman Odestris. Get to the portal, then you get into the guild house of the Body of 5. This is where you explore the guild house to find the game's plans because there's no map. If you've been inside this place, you don't know, you're a keeper of the secrets. Outsiders don't get into this place, and so you can't find a map. So you get to go in cold, you get to go in blind, essentially. If you time it right, and the Game Master shall always time this right, you get to encounter the other champions at the same time that they're copying the plans because you really shouldn't take them because they'll know they've been stolen. If you just sit there and copy them, they don't know you've made a copy. So part of the planning stage of your heist and all that. So if this doesn't sound like fun, stop the episode now. It gets better from here. So here's how the Game Master should probably help define heroic for your heroic deeds in signing onto this championship. Did you take Galmir's blood oath and now want to back out of it? Did you feel less heroic stealing the tournament plans? Do you think you can win against the cheaters honestly, or do you think you need to also copy the plans and beat them at their own game? And did you devise a way to turn them in without compromising yourselves or letting the authorities know how you came across this information? And do you know the Therans, Denerastus, and House Contention are behind all of this? Spoiler alert, half an hour into the episode.
Yeah. As talked about a little bit in the Travar sourcebook, because of the power and influence that the magistrates have, there are interests from the Therans, from the Denerastus, from anybody with a significant political interest in the direction that Travar takes and the choices it makes and things like that, have a significant interest in getting their own chosen candidate onto the council. And it is something where they don't even necessarily need to be disguised behind multiple levels of shell corporations, for lack of a better term. They can actually put themselves up for a seat on the council if they have a team that is sufficiently
funded.
Yeah, sufficiently funded, sufficiently skilled to potentially win. Of course, there would be quite a bit of interest if a Denerastus was blatantly running for a seat.
Mm-hmm.
There would be quite a bit of interest because of all of the skullduggery and intrigue and sabotage that could potentially happen. They would probably want to keep their involvement quiet and go through a front where they are providing the funding for the group that will get a merchant on, and that winner would then owe favors. Again, very corrupt capitalist kind of situation, as is befitting for the merchant city, the city dedicated to Carolus.
Oh, yeah.
Intrigue, the tournament itself is in this adventure, but the focus is more on the surrounding politics and intrigue and stuff like that. And it is only one little corner of it that is being dealt with here because of the number of candidates and the number of teams that compete. This is just one particular flavor of conflict that shows up as this year's tournament.
Yeah. I figure Act 1 is dealing with Galmir, introducing yourselves, background information, so forth and so on.
Learning about the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Act 2 is, do you do the heist, or do you try and turn everybody in? If you can figure out how to get that done, that's a whole lot of plotting. But Act 3 is you actually get into the arena, because eventually the players are going to want to get into what they're good at or what they're better at. How's that? And get into the actual arena with or without knowing the answers to the contests. And in between fighting off the assassin, if they say no, fighting off the Therans, if they happen to be involved in this, or any other rivals, because the rivals figured out that you've been hired and they want to stop you from winning and so forth and so on. So, I mean, it's a big if-then statement about the whole second act. But the third act should be pretty straightforward. There's 4 things to do in the 2 weeks of the arena. 1 is the qualification pit. There's tests of courage, dexterity, and wit. You cross the length of the arena, avoiding some traps and some hazards, and answering easy and hard riddles at the same time, while battling some beasts maybe. And so, a whole lot of dice rolls. The guys get to use their talents and so forth and so on. Great.
It is where the more physically oriented adepts are going to be happier.
Yes. And you get to compete as a team.
There hasn't necessarily been a whole lot of clashing of weapons and such up to this point.
Yeah. So your warriors will be bored not say bored, but disinterested the first couple of acts. Third act, they're all about it. So get them into this one. So second part of the arena is the cart race. And this is 7 laps in the arena. And the whole team is on a cart. So pick the one person who's not very martial and have them do the driving because they won't be able to do anything else. And this is maneuvers and obstacles, and there's rules for this stuff in the very back of the adventure. I'm not going to get into the details now, but just laying out the overall theme for you. The third section is the Duel of Power. So these are the magically enhanced gladiatorial battles. Again, not to the death. You are given time off between all of these things to rest up for a day or whatever you need to do. Killing is not the goal. Showmanship is the goal. Whoever puts on the best show wins this section of the tournament. And so as a team, this is where you get to stand out and put on the best show. And then fourth is the actual inauguration, the parades, the celebration, if there's magical fireworks, party, food, whatever, you got it. There you are. Just so you know, Game Master, you get to play all these little NPC parts, Beltalk and Galmir and everybody else you're dealing with, the opposing champions, because they're laid out. But you also get to do a whole lot of dice rolling for the very many opposing teams in the championship. So there will be bouts of clickety-clackety all over the tabletop.
Yeah, the amount of die rolling that the Game Master would do for the opposing teams is probably something that I would recommend be kept to a minimum. I think anything that is directly interacting with the player character should probably be rolled out. But, the players are sitting out this round, or something else is going on that they're not involved with. I'm not going to roll out both sides of this conflict in full as these two carts by other rival teams are clashing against each other. Maybe make a simple test or two to kind of determine what the overall outcome is and kind of just narratively describe it. There is a little sidebar in here about customizing it. One of the things that it does recommend, which I think is a great idea, because you are dealing with experienced player characters, is to bring in characters that they know from previous adventures. Maybe a rival group that they have clashed with in the past, or maybe a group that you are planning to bring in the future.
Yes.
To kind of take a side step here, there's an adventure framework in Prelude to War where the player characters are supposed to infiltrate the Triumph. And the way that they do that is by ambushing a group of Theron agents and sort of assuming their identities. If you are sort of running in that time frame and you're looking at this adventure, having that group be one of the other groups, and so they can like have previously met them and maybe have a sense of what's going on, could be something that you deal with. But this is, again, a great opportunity to flesh out ideas or to revisit friends and enemies and rivals from the past, because this is something that will draw big names from across Barsave, because of the payment and prestige involved in competing in the tournament, let alone winning it. And again, you're probably looking at a lot of mid to upper journeyman or very low warden level, master level, whichever one is like the circle 9-10 adepts. Is it warden? Yeah, I think it used to be like master, then warden, and then we flipped it around to warden, then master. But regardless, upper journeyman and low next tier. Warden. The other group that you run into during the heist, if you do that, are all 6th and 7th circle adepts. Right. A couple of them are multidiscipline. That is a group that you could very easily substitute with another group from your campaign, like another rival group that they might have dealing with before, if you want to make things even a little bit more interesting, rather than just this other random group of adepts that shows up. Obviously, in a pre-published adventure, you want to provide that material to the Game Master, but it is very easy, I think, to substitute. Or, if you're thinking about running this, to have introduced this group before in some capacity.
Yeah.
You know, as I have talked about, especially when you start getting into higher circles, legendary statuses of when people actually have them, people will have heard of each other. I mean, if you've got an adept archer in your group, the seventh circle elf archer that's described here as part of that other company is probably somebody that they may have heard of. Adepts are not super rare, but they get a lot more rare as you start getting into those upper journeyman and higher circles.
And maybe any of your player characters understudied under one of them.
Yeah.
As a nice little wrinkle.
There's a lot of opportunity here in this for game masters to customize and make things interesting based on what has gone before in their campaign, what they might be planning for the future. Mm-hmm. I think that is a strength of the adventure in one regards, but I also think it could be seen as a weakness because it does require, in that sense, a bit more prep. This is obviously not an adventure that you would pick up just to do as a one-shot, likely, because of the experience level of the characters being involved and the
this is
strength of the story, and I think the effectiveness of it overall is improved by having those pre-existing connections and relationships and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect idea for, you've gotten your characters to a certain circle, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you need to kind of jumpstart it or send it in a different direction, or this is like the new season of a TV show. You've done 4 seasons so far, your characters got to this and so circle, send them to Travar for tournament troubles and see where this goes. And you can flesh this out to a larger degree, add your own brush strokes, your paint palette, the whole 9 yards, and get this the way you want it to go. And then, because the aftermath of this is if they win, if they don't win, if they win and Magistrate Galmir takes over, yes, then Iopos benefits in the background. If Brelnar wins, then if things kind of maybe remain neutral between Thera and Thrall. If somebody else wins and you guys don't do anything at all, then it's up to the game master what happens to Travar and who takes over the magistrate position. And it's a big if-then statement that now you've got a new direction for your party to go in. And do they hang around Travar to do more? Do they follow up on anything else that they happen to encounter? It's a big city. Whole new bunch of NPCs. You can just basically wipe the slate clean with what you've been doing before and reset here for the next season of your TV show, air quotes.
Or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, something like that. So, any other thoughts on who wrote this one? Do we know?
I don't know. I suspect. Hold on, let me flip to the credits page because they didn't ID the individual writers.
I think this might be Ian Lemke's.
That's certainly possible.
Because we know Luz, we know David Carolay wrote Runevir's Tomb. Kept in the Dark, I think, was Lou. And so it's either Jennifer Hartshorn or Ian Lemke wrote this one, is my guess. We covered Gary Bowerbank on the other one.
Wait, hold on. I can find out.
Either way, fantastic job. I like the way this one's put together.
I've got the standalone Tournament Troubles PDF.
Yay.
On my drive here. No, Karsten wrote this. Yes, Karsten Dam is credited for the writing on this.
Karsten! Well done, sir. That makes sense. Okay. No, well done, sir. Sorry to see you go. But I think this is a wonderful reboot, change of direction for your party. If they get to these circles, for tournament troubles, by all means, flesh this thing out, add your own spin to it, add your own color palette for the NPCs you want to use or the opposing factions you want to use, and this will help you kind of jumpstart the next section of your Earthdawn campaign.
Or bring a stage of it to a close. If you were sort of building up to this longer term, that's another way you could approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a nice...
The big tournament with whoever assumes it feels like a very season finale kind of...
Exactly.
Capstone to something.
Yeah, if you need to wrap something up and put Earth on the shelf for a while, this is not a bad way to do that either. So, just saying. I like this one. I really do.
This does require a bit more preparation and a bit more work on the game master to run, but if you are running a game for experienced journeyman characters, that shouldn't be too much of a difficulty. Unlike some of the other shards that are in this first collection, like Journey to Language is intended as an introductory, like first-time adventure. Runvir's Tomb is also a very introductory adventure. Kept in the Dark, also an introductory adventure. Pale River is a low circle one. It's not really introductory, but it is a low circle. This is sort of the standout in this as, here is an example of what a higher circle adventure can look like. Going back to the idea that I've mentioned in the past of adventures, pre-published, pre-written adventures being examples of the sorts of things that you, as the designer / writer, expect to be done in the game, and that less experienced game masters might look to for inspiration and a template in how to come up with their own stories.
Exactly. So this is, one last reminder, meant for higher circle, more politically astute players and characters. Make sure the players are in tune with what their character can and cannot do.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that is the case in any adventure, but when we're looking at something like Journey to Lang or Runvir's Tomb, those are a lot more traditional, for lack of a better term, dungeon crawly kind of linear point A to point B to point C kind of things. Even if there is a little bit of non-combat stuff that happens in them, as is the case with all of them. But this is one that is a lot more potentially convoluted and requires a lot more prep on the part of the game master, just in terms of thinking about what might happen and the interactions that could be in place.
Characters going off script.
Yeah. You're in a little bit more of a sandboxy kind of environment with this one.
So, anyway, folks, if you have any questions for us about this one, or if you've run this one, I want to know how you did. I want to know how you pulled it off. I'd love to hear the stories about this adventure right here. So drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, go find your own tournament troubles for your legend.
Good night, everybody.